Hey everyone, let's solve question 608 tree node. So the question says each node in a tree can be of one of three types: a leaf node, a root node, or an inner node. So an inner node is basically neither a leaf node nor a root node. So we need to write a query to report the type of node in the tree, and there is no specific order that we need to return the result in. So let's try and look at just this pictorial example. So from this example, we see that 1 does not have any parent and it's a root node. We can also observe that 4, 5, and 3 are all leaf nodes. The reason why they're leaf nodes is because they do not have any other children. And node number 2 has two children, 4 and 5, and hence this acts like an inner node. So let's look at this the input table that's given to us, the tree table. So what we identify is that node 1 has a PID or a parent ID of null. So let's try to figure out the approach we can use to solve the problem. So first thing we can identify, if a PID is null, we can immediately tag that particular node as a root node. And the reason for that is if a node has a parent ID of null, that means it just does not have a parent, and hence it has to be the root. So that's the first logic. Now this question can become really easy to solve if you make the next catch, and the next catch is identifying the leaf nodes. So if you observe this table, you can observe that for the IDs, or for the nodes 3, 4, and 5, these IDs do not exist in the PID column or the parent ID column. And the reason for that is because 3, 4, and 5 are actually leaf nodes, and hence they cannot be, they will never act as parent nodes, and hence they will never be a part of the PID column. So that's an important catch you have to really make in this question. So the next condition that we're going to use is if any ID is not a part of the PID column, then that particular ID or those particular nodes are going to be leaf nodes, and all the remaining nodes are simply going to be our inner nodes. So let's go ahead and start writing our query. So I'm going to say select star, and again, if you've watched any of my previous videos, I always suggest using star as a placeholder. So select star, I'm going to say from tree, and that should pretty much be it. But let's now go and try to understand what are the columns that we need. So the first column in the output that we need is the ID. So I'm going to say select ID as the first column. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use some case when statements. So to say case when PID is null, so this is our first case, then we're going to say the output should be root, right? So when PID is null, the output is root. So this is our first case, which is done. So the next case we want is when our ID, when the ID in, I'm going to do the opposite of this just to make our query slightly simpler. So I'm going to say when ID in, so it has to be in PID, right? So when ID in PID, then I'm going to say inner, right? So I'm doing the opposite of this one. So if ID is in PID, then it's going to be an inner node, and finally else is going to be simply a leaf. And let's end our case when statement. So end, and let's alias this as, I think it's called as type. So again, just to go over, so when the PID, that's the first case, when PID is null, we're going to say root, that node is the root. When the ID is in the PID, then it's going to be an inner node, and if none of those cases are true, it's simply a root, it's simply a leaf node. So this should work, and I'm going to go ahead and submit this. Okay, so we do have a case failing. So let's try to understand what's going on here. So oh, okay. So this seems like a pretty simple mistake. I have to make that the capital L. So let's run it. Okay, that works, and I think this should work as well. Perfect. So good runtime, and that's how you solve this question. So thank you, everybody.